Thank you. Realize I forgot to do that. Next up is Prachi.
Hi, I am a software engineer in Astronomer, and I'm relatively new hire. So just getting started working on the Marquez project.
Welcome. Yeah, welcome twice over, I guess.
Thanks.
And next is Minkyu.
So hello, my name is Minkyu, and I am also a software engineer at Astronomer and also contributor to Marquez and Open Lineage. And good to see you all.
Next is Mike.
Hey, I'm Mike. I'm a staff software engineer at Astronomer and a contributor to Open Lineage and Marquez as well.
Thank you. And John.
My name is John. I'm on the community team in Astronomer, working alongside Michael.
And Willy.
Hello, everyone. I'm Willy. I'm a software engineer at Astronomer on the observability team. I'm the co-creator of Marquez and an Open Lineage committer.
And Ross.
Hey, everybody. Sorry for joining late. I'm Ross. I'm also on the community team here at Astronomer, and I'm here to help.
And I'm also here to help. I'm on the community team at Astronomer as well, and I coordinate these meetings. So once again, great to see everybody. Let me share again. So these are our communication modes. Please join us on Slack if you haven't already. All right. We'd love to see you there if you're not already with us on Slack. Twitter, I guess we'll stay there for now, right? Don't forget to delete your Twitter profile. Just kidding.
Okay.
Or not. So we have a pretty full agenda today. A lot of good stuff to talk about happening in the project. After some brief announcements, I'm going to talk about our recent release 27.0. We'll have a demo of a new feature. It's really exciting by Pawel, symlinks. Hear from Willy about the UI, a new feature there, and the roadmap for future improvements. So that's what we've got on the agenda. Oh, and by the way, if you'd like to add an item, feel free at any point. And we have time reserved for open discussion at the end. So very briefly, Willy, do you want to share any announcements or?
Yeah, we're going to, there's two things which we're going to go over in later slides about the release, but 2.7.0 went out and that was released this week on the 24th. So there's a lot of changes that came in there, a lot of improvements. I want to give Pawel a shout out again because he's been such a huge contributor to this release as well as the features that came out. So he's going to be demoing the symlink for data sets, but he had such a huge contribution with column level lineage that was demoed in the previous month or last community meeting. But we're already seeing users starting to experiment with column level lineage and getting some feedback there. Also, let's see, there is a deadline for the Data Console Austin 2023. I just wanted to put that out there. If there's anyone interested in presenting about Marquez, about Open Lineage, or how they're using those open source projects and use cases internally within their org, we'd be happy to work with you on giving feedback on a slide deck or anything like that. And reach out to us on Slack, on Twitter, and we'll be happy to work with you. I know Ross is on the call here, who really helps with a lot of the branding and marketing around that. And he's a great resource. I know limited resource, but a great one if you could get a bit of his time. He's super busy in other initiatives, but just wanted to let people know that, hey, we're probably going to present there. And if you want to kind of present as well, let us know, and we'll work with you. Yeah, that's all I had.
Right, thanks.
And we should probably provide a link to that as well, Michael, at some point. Maybe I'll just link it in the chat here, or where they could register.
Absolutely, yeah. I'll do it if you forget. Okay. So as mentioned, our recent release was 27.0. There's almost too much to talk about in a meeting, and I won't try to cover everything that's on these slides because it's just too much. But I do want to hit some of the highlights, starting with the new symlink feature. So big thanks to Pawel for all the work that went into this release. With 2066, Pawel contributed support for multiple dataset names. And this PR added edges to the lineage graph for that. 2087 modified the project to handle the new symlink dataset facet from the spec. And we owe Pawel thanks for the new column lineage feature, highly anticipated, very exciting. I'll just try to hit some of the highlights here as well. With 2096, we got a new API endpoint to retrieve the column lineage data from the database. With 2124, we got a new graph endpoint to expose the data. With 2113, we got an expanded datasets endpoint to return the column lineage facet. With 2159, we got an extended recursive query to traverse the graph for downstream nodes. 2148, we got a new method, column lineage service, to enrich data set with the new metadata. And support for column lineage in the Java client with 2163. Changes to the API to support column lineage for jobs with 2204. Support in the Python client with 2209. And some important fixes to make it more stable. So thanks Pawel for all that hard work. But that's not all. We have some exciting changes to the lineage graph as well. Now the UI displays the current run state for jobs. Thank you, Willy, for that, 2146. And we'll probably hear more about that soon. And I wanted to touch on a few changes to the API as well. Some key fixes there. Peter Hicks, unfortunately, he couldn't join us today because of illness. So hoping he gets well soon, but thanks to 2161, we have a dramatically more efficient lineage query to speed up the join operation. Similarly, Mike contributed improvements to the job function to support the new symlinks feature with 2144. We also got support for the parent run facet from Mike to support older Airflow open lineage versions with 2130. Fix and tests for handling Airflow DAGs that fixed a recent breaking change in the Airflow integration, also from Mike and Willy. I'll stop there for now, but wanted to thank all the contributors for the fixes and changes and additions. There are more resources here. Please check them out for more information. All the fixes and more details are there. So that's 27.0. And now, without further ado, I'll turn it over to Pawel.
Okay, I will try to share my screen. Just give me a second. Oh, that's the screen I would like to share. Let me know if you see my screen. So my Safari browser. Can you see it? I hope, yeah.
Yeah, we're looking at a Jupyter notebook.
Yeah, so that's great. That's the demo notebook that will present the dataset symlink feature. So we can go through it. If you'd like to do it on your own, please keep in mind that under Open Lineage repository, there's a subrepo called workshops, where we put some interesting demos and workshops. Like for Spark, we already have 2 of them for dataset symlinks and column lineage workshop. Yeah, and this one is just one of them. So it's pretty easy to go through because you just need to clone the repository, write Docker Compose up, and you will have up and running IPython notebook with Spark installed and Marquez. And there's an instruction to this under the workshops how to do it, including all the installation steps. So once you open the notebook, yeah, there are some instructions and description. What is it about? So sometimes it happens that the dataset is identified by different names depending on a context. So an example of this may be a Spark table, which can be identified by its physical location, like the location on some object storage, or it can be also identified by a catalog name and a table name within Hive Metastore. And these are 2 different names which direct to the same data set. And this is kind of the inconsistency which can lead to broken lineage. So imagine that one job writes to a physical location, the other reads from logical name, so from the Hive Metastore. And it seems as if they were writing and reading different data sets. And yeah, the lineage can get broken. Yeah? So you won't see a shiny graph of what's happening under the hood. And dataset symlink feature is an extra facet to help with this. It's a facet that says, hey, these are the alternate names of the data set. And this information is stored in Marquez, and it's used to retrieve a data set and to be able to create a lineage edges, although the name is not exactly the same. And yeah, that's something we'll try to show within the demo. So let's first try and check if the Marquez is up and running. So yeah, we just do some requests to Marquez asking for the namespace and verify if its status code is 200. So if it's up or not. Next, we are going to spin a Spark cluster with an Open Lineage connector enabled, and we will enable Hive support for the Spark session and specify a fake Hive metastore. So Spark will not connect to this metastore, but it will think that the table is located there. And this trick is done because we want to emulate the behavior of our Spark integration jar to think as if there was a symlink. So not only the physical location on the disk would be a name, but also a symlink. So the alternative name will be sent within the Open Lineage event. So we start the Spark session. We specify that the catalog implementation is Hive, and we tell Spark where the Hive metastore is. Of course, we do need to add the Open Lineage jar and specify the URL to Marquez instance with namespace provided, which is something like this with Marquez URL. Yeah, I think I have all the Spark session running. So yeah, you know, whenever you present a demo, you run 100 times before going and it's working, then you go live, it stops working. So let's see if the same happens this time. So first, let's try to drop the table. Of course, it's not working because perhaps the Spark session was down. Wait a second. Marquez is okay. Let's start again the Spark session. And then, yeah, the Spark session is downloading the OpenImage connector. And after a moment, we'll drop the table if it exists and try to create it. So we are going to create some dummy table, some table with just 2 columns, and we specified that we would like to use Hive catalog. So since Spark version 3, we are able to specify the catalogs like Iceberg, Delta, or Hive. And yeah, so after creating a table, the OpenImage event got generated and set to our Marquez, and we can verify it. So the Marquez provides an endpoint to get recent lineage events being sent, and we can actually limit it to last event and see if this is the event we just sent before. It's just us running this, so there should be this event. And instead of printing the whole event, we'll just print its job section to see that its name is execute create table command. So it's exactly what we were trying to. It's exactly the event we sent by creating this table. So this event is pretty big one, like all OpenImage events, but we can have a look at the output section of it and print some namespace and name of the output data set, which is namespace is file, name is just the location of the table on local Docker container. But we can also see there's additional symlink facet telling what's the other possible name of the data set. And the namespace is just location of Hive metastore, and the name is database and the table. Yeah. This type of this identifier is a table. So we do have a data set with 2 identifiers. One is its physical location, the other is its location within Hive metastore. And first thing we can try to get the data set from Marquez API and try to request it by different names. So first we can request it by its physical location and print some part of the data set like ID. We get something that's cool. The other thing we can do is to request the same endpoint, but provide different namespace and different dataset names. So we provide our URL to Hive metastore and the table name, and we get the same. So we're able to get the same dataset by 2 different names. Now we can see how it affects the lineage endpoint. So the lineage endpoint of Marquez is an endpoint where the whole graph gets returned. So first, let's create some event related to other job, which will try to read from our dataset created just before, but we will read it from the metastore. So we will read it by the symlink we provided earlier, and assume this job writes a data to another table in another namespace. Yeah, it's an open lineage event. We would like to send it to Marquez. We get 201, which means the event was saved. And now we are going to request the lineage graph of our initial data set. So the lineage graph should have 2 endpoints. Yeah? The initial table we created, and the output of this job including another namespace and another table. Yeah, and once we request it, again, I don't want to print whole JSON because it will be too big, but we can iterate through the JSON and just print the nodes, and you see there are 2 nodes. So there is another namespace and another table data set within the response, which means Marquez was able to produce the lineage, although the data set had different names, and the edge of the lineage was created upon the dataset symlinks, which ends our demo. Any questions, guys?
No question from me, but amazing demo. And you said this is available on Open Lineage workshops?
Yes, it is.
Very cool.
Yeah, the great demo, super easy to follow.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, a ton of information. Thank you. Well, why don't we move on to the UI? And Willy, Would you like to tell us about the update on run state change?
Absolutely. I am trying to set up locally because I wanted to do a local demo, but I think what I'll do is just talk about it in the PR that got merged, so I could share my screen. Let's see. Oops. And one thing to note, I did get help from Peter on this PR. So the reason why we actually even focused on this feature in the UI was actually a discussion that happened in the random channel in Marquez. So if you're not on that on this channel, join it because there's some good discussion that happens. And one of them was from, I forgot how to pronounce his name, but Harik from Ancestry. And he was just kind of saying, would it be possible if Marquez could display the current run state of the job, especially if you have a very big graph? It's hard to know what state some jobs might be in. Normally, you'd have to go through the run history and kind of see whether it's failing, if it's running, or if the job has completed. So in this screenshot, you'll see that the green means completed, and the yellow that represents the job is running in the running currently in the running state, or red if your job has failed. So I'm not like the biggest expert when it comes to UI development, but I did take a stab at it with Peter's help and assistance. And this is kind of what we came up with, something very similar that you saw from the mockups that was done by Ancestry. And I know for them, this was going to be a big visual component or big impact, because visually you could see the current state of your job. And that got merged in and was part of the release. And just wanted to show that maybe my UI is running. It's not. That's okay. Let's see what's going on. Okay, there's an error. So we won't go. Let's just forget that. I'm not fully prepared for the demo, so I just wanted to show you that this feature is available, and go check it out. Give us some feedback, and that's it here. So before I transition, I know there's something else I wanted to talk about in terms of UI development, but before I go any further, any questions on this particular?
The state of the and the color is taken from Airflow, as I assume, yes?
It can be. Good question. Yeah, yeah. The run state, we do get it from Airflow, but it's not specific to Airflow. Airflow has a certain task state, but if you're running in Spark, Spark also has a running state or complete state, and the open lineage spec kind of says, here's an event and here's the current run state of this Airflow task or this Spark job or soon Flink jobs. So there's a unified way to represent the current run state. But if we have the integration emitting open lineage events, and in your case, your questions about Airflow, it will emit the appropriate run state for your task. And then Marquez will store that on the back end, and then we're able to display that metadata on the front end.
Okay, thank you.
And if you do want to check out, we do have an example. If you go to example Airflow, we haven't updated the icon, the images yet. But if you wanted to take a look and how to use Marquez open lineage with Airflow, you can check this out here. You can kind of see there's some older UI screenshots, but you'll be able to run through this example if you're looking to use Marquez with Airflow. Don't want to scroll too fast, but yeah, it's another examples Airflow.
Sure, thank you. Thank you for directions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure thing. And Michael, should we move on to the next? Am I up next? Just talk.
Mhm.
Okay, so you get more of me. Let's do the UI roadmap. Still hanging. So if anyone from the community is interested in what we have on our roadmap or what's slotted for release, if you go under projects, and then you click on Marquez, that will open up a sort of up-to-date representation of what we have in our backlog and also what's on our roadmap. And you could filter by different labels. And I'm going to filter quickly by web. So there's a lot of really good first issues. So any newcomers to the project that want to contribute, to the Marquez UI, you're more than welcome to pick up some of these good first issues and contribute back. But someone who's contributed quite a bit is in terms of prioritizing and opening up issues for UI enhancements is Howard. So I want to give him a shout out. And he created a few interesting issues around the UI, and we are beginning to prioritize and do have an engineer that will begin to work on these features. So in the next release, you should start seeing some of these features make its way in. So maybe I go one by one, but I think the really interesting one here, if I open it up, and again, Howard is just kind of mocking things up here, and he couldn't be on the call. Actually, it would have been great if he presented this because he did a lot of the work in cataloging some of these issues. But I'm going to go through them, or at least the ones I think that are pretty cool and have some interesting mockups. So there's this raw event viewer. I'm not sure at what release the events API was made available, but you can query the events. So when you post open lineage events to the lineage endpoint, you can also, and actually it should be documented here. Let me double check. Yes, so there's a way to list the open lineage events. So if you do a call to events lineage, you'll get back a list of events. So if I scroll in here, and this is actually the raw events that are in Marquez that you've sent. So you'll get back the event type, the time, and all the run metadata that's associated with that event, as well as the producer of the event itself. And you are able to provide sort of sorting. Do you want it ascending, descending? You do get some timestamps, so you're able to, parameters that allow you to filter the events by a certain time window, and if you want to limit them. So that, since that API was made available, the next obvious step is how do we make that available to the UI? I mean, obviously you could query the API. So just for some context there. And one thing that Howard did was kind of put up a quick mock-up. On the left side, we might have an icon, or in this case, we're looking to add it to the toolbar here. And when you click on that, you get some interesting metrics and also information and filtering. So you'll be able to look at, one, how many events you do have. We'll have pagination, and at the same time, you can see maybe the last 10. What were the events that happened in the last 10 minutes, 30 minutes, and so forth. And when you click on one of those, you'll be able to display a bunch of information that's listed here, like the run ID, the state, right? The namespace that the event is associated with. And then once you click on that event, you'll get the raw a JSON payload rendered in the UI. And you see this pattern a lot, like, if you've ever used any sort of logging in for GCP or AWS, they have a very similar look and feel. And so that way you can browse the logs. What does everyone think? They love this feature, they don't, but either way, you can comment on the issue itself. But before I go on to another one, if there's any discussion that needs to happen on this one, quick, we could talk about it. If not, you could comment in the issue itself. Okay. And This is another interesting one. Search enhancements. I don't think there's a UI mockup here, but I do want to mention that there's a lot of work being done on the search capability. And Pawel, you do have a proposal open. So let me open this up. So there's a proposal to use a better implementation behind the scenes for Marquez. So here's what's being proposed at the moment is Elasticsearch. So just an engine, a search engine that actually gives you the capability to do proper indexing. Right now, what Marquez uses on the back end is just a text, pretty much a match text using like, and that's okay for names. But if you want to index facets, if you want to index descriptions for data sets and jobs, that becomes pretty limited. So there's a proposal by Pawel who, great write-up, by the way. I did leave some comments, but for the most part, great work here. And we wanted to accompany some UI enhancements as this is being worked on and being spec'd out. But either way, I just wanted to say that. So there are some search enhancements coming, and things around columns and so forth. But yeah. Oh wait, let's see. Does this one have the mockup? No, it doesn't. Okay. Facet viewer. Yeah, I think this one. So what the really nice capability that OpenLineage has is adding additional metadata along with your OpenLineage event. And the way facets are displayed now, it's just text. There's no way to kind of collapse or be able to, collapse or expand facets, and you just are given a text. So what is being proposed in this issue that was opened up by Howard again is the ability to kind of click through and have links that highlight, which I think is great. So just a better interaction and interface with the facets that are associated with your OpenLineage events. And those facets are for data sets or for jobs. So in the Marquez UI, there's a facet viewer based off what node you click in the graph. And if you click on a job node, you'll see job related facets, and data sets you'll see facets for your data set, which has a schema and so forth. So that's also something that we are prioritizing and want to work on, because we know those facets could be pretty important if they're custom facets that you add to your event. I think there's more that we want to do with that. So, one thing that we've talked about is if you do have custom facets, can we make it pluggable for you to inject some JavaScript to do some interesting processing of those custom facets and being able to display something on the UI, so like some custom logic that you might want to inject. So that's something we've also been discussing. And let's see if this one time range fixed queries. Okay. Yeah, this is also another one that Pawel, you have a lot of stuff open at the moment that you need feedback for, but this is just talking about actually, Pawel, if you wanted to talk about this one, I feel like I'm going over some of the work that you've been doing, but if you briefly mention a few things about
so okay, it's not my work, it's just putting together the discussions we have and asking others for the feedback to make sure that we can start implementation and we align on what has to be done and how we are going to do that. So the proposal is providing an API to retrieve historical data, because we do have an endpoint to get the current state of the data set, but it may be really interesting to see how the data set look like a day ago, a week ago, or 2 weeks ago, and be able to compare it. So, and this applies not only to dataset endpoint, but actually to all the possible endpoints of Marquez. And before implementing this, it's worth discussing how we are going to do this so that we choose an approach that fits all the possible use cases of point in time endpoints in Marquez. Yeah. So at this point, we agreed that we would like to identify snapshots by the versions. It can be version of the dataset or dataset version. We do have such entries in relational database. It can be a job version or a run ID. And these are the entities that allow us to identify the point in time where we can exactly say what was the snapshot of wherever at that point in time. Yeah? And there's still discussion on that, and I hope we're able to merge the proposal, and then we are ready to implement the feature.
Yeah, and that's going to be really, really powerful. I mean, one example I could give is that, you know, you're a small team within your org, and you know, you have, let's say, a warehouse, and you have a couple Airflow jobs that are running. They're doing ETL into that warehouse with a few upstream, maybe operational data stores or just data store tables, or I'm sorry, databases in general, to store user information. So that graph might look fairly small. So that's a snapshot. So when your job runs, it's creating versions for all those different assets. And then as you grow, so do the teams, so do the data sources and the assets that you care about. And that has a representation as well. So that graph, imagine comparing that graph at the current state with more teams, more resources to the one that maybe you originally started with, and being able to do a diff and seeing what has changed along the way. So just like you take snapshots of databases, we're looking at, I mean, Marquez has that information stored. We want to expose an API to do a snapshot of your graph at a given time and being able to ask, what did it look like a month ago compared to now? So really powerful feature that this particular issue is talking about, but I think some more detail is needed here, but I think we just wanted to capture that work. I'm just doing a time check. Okay. Let me see if this one. Yeah, this one. Yeah, this was another one that was requested or mentioned by Ancestry. They just wanted to be able to, when you go to the jobs page and list all the jobs, you just want to see the current status. So I think right now we just have the latest runtime and some information about what namespace the job's associated with, but being able to have a quick view. So let's say if you start your day, grab a cup of coffee, and you want to see all the jobs that have ran maybe the previous day or before you logged in, you want to see have any failed, and being able to then troubleshoot and seeing what happened there. So this is just a global overview of your current jobs and their run states, and especially if you have any dependencies of your job that are upstream and that's failing, you probably want to know about that. So that status is going to be added. It's not all that complicated, and I think you get a really huge impact. And just to understand what jobs might be failing that you care about. I think that's all I wanted to. Oh yeah, the soft delete one, because it's probably the most requested. I can't believe I almost forgot about this one. So being able to delete metadata, there's been so much ongoing discussion about that. And what we really landed on is Marquez should be the source of truth of metadata. And what that means is if you delete metadata, that means if that asset has been deleted and you don't have a reference to it, then it never existed. So we still want to catalog that a data set was deleted or a job was deleted, even though it doesn't exist anymore. But there should still be a reference. So what we do now is we do soft delete, which means that it won't, if you do calls to Marquez to list jobs or data sets, they won't show up, but they'll still be on the back end. And you are now able to not only make an API call, but we're looking to do soft deletes on the front end. as well. So you could just delete the job and it won't show up on the lineage graph, but it's still stored. So if you have to do if there's any compliance reports, those still will be available, that at some point, some code modified this data set at a given time. And for historical snapshots of the graph, that's also why it's important to keep it around, just to know that over time, you know what, the whole lineage graph looks different. It evolves in a certain way, but you still want to be able to see at what point in time. Never mind. You just want to be able to see, hey, at one point that job existed. So you'll be able to do that on the front end. Now, do we want every user to do this? That's a good question that I'm asking myself. I mean, should you have like an admin role, or if you're the owner of the job or data set, you have the right to delete it? That's a whole other question that there are discussions ongoing as well. But feel free to chime in on any of these issues. I just wanted to point them out, and also all the hard work that Howard put into mocking up some of these UI changes that are beginning to be prioritized. And again, some of these features are a bit big, so they won't make it into the next they won't make it in, so that way we can discuss them in the next community meeting. But for sure, some of the easy wins, like showing the current job state and the jobs homepage, I think that will make its way in, as well as a few others as well. And that's all I got.
Okay.
I don't know, I'm excited. I mean, the fact that the UI is slowly getting some cool features is a huge win I think for the project, and you know, getting others involved from the community is also a huge win as well.
All right. Well, thank you, Willy. And with that, it's time to turn to our open discussion segment. If anyone has questions for project leads, user stories that they'd like to share, now would be a great time. Would anyone like to add an item, ask a question? All right. Awkward. Is this pause awkward enough? Is this long enough?
I would have waited 3 more seconds, but yeah.
We're good at awkwardness in this community, Arik. So just so you know.
I feel, like
Welcome in IT.
I feel like the trick is to just sit in silence until somebody else breaks it.
Peak awkwardness.
Okay.
I'm very good at being awkward.
Oh, was that Minku? Okay, yeah, you are an absolute master.
Master of being awkward.
Learn from him. Yeah.
Tune in next time for the Marquez community meeting, where we discuss how awkward the community can be.
No, we're not that bad. No, we're super friendly and stuff. What? Okay, now I'm making it awkward.
You really sure?
I think you can give a seminar.
Oh man, this is very meta. This is very performative. This is great. Okay, well, thank you everybody. Have a great day, and we'll see you next month.
See y'all next month.
All right.
Thank you
Later.
for the
See you,
meeting.
folks.
Have a good day.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks
Bye.
for joining.